Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and a hearty welcome to the Voice of the Cape's online, matric online revision session. I am currently standing in for Amir Adams for today's session, and our special guest and facilitator for this part of the revision session is Danielle Victorious, who is a facilitator at Futures Academy SA's online high school. And today the subject we are covering is history, and that is also inviting all our grade 12 learners who are preparing for the upcoming final examination on history to also make a note and join the session. Remember, this is a recorded session, which means you can always refer back to the lesson. And the topic for today is orientation and history skills. Good day, Daniel, and welcome.
Hi. So I was actually planning on doing my history class tomorrow, and then
Awesome.
my business class was scheduled
Oh,
for today.
okay. Okay. Okay, so I had my whole intro beautifully prepared. So, just as a correction there, the subject today is business studies, and tomorrow will be the history section. And so, Daniel, I'll hand over to you to give an overview on what exactly you will be covering in today's session on business studies.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So essentially, how I've structured these classes is that we will have three classes. Today, the first class will be covering examination skills for business studies and also orientation. The second class will be covering paper one topics, and the last class will be covering the paper two topics. I'm starting with the orientation and the examination skills because I tend to see that a lot of students lose their marks, not necessarily in terms of content, but because they don't know how to exactly answer the exam script.
Wonderful. So, I'll hand over to you to proceed.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So, hi, everyone. Um, I think what we're going to start with is just kind of some business orientation. So, essentially, for business studies, what happens is you write a paper one and a paper two, as you've been doing throughout the year already. The paper one is out of 150 marks, and the paper two is also out of 150 marks. The topics are then thus split between these two. So, important to note for your paper one, you write on the topics business environment and business operations. Under that, the subtopic of macro environment, impact of recent legislation, business strategies, and then the business sectors and their environments. Under business operations, we have the subtopic of human resources function and the subtopic of quality of performance. So this is what you're going to revise for your paper one. Conversely, for your paper two, you will then do the topics business ventures and business roles, and then these subtopics underneath. You will see that these are all the topics that you've done this year, and they are simply divided under these two main categories. I think these categories are also helpful for you to kind of orientate the work for yourself. So, business ventures, a venture is starting something new in a business, hence management and leadership, investment, forms of ownership, presentation and data response. Business roles, the things that you take up within the business, hence topics like ethics and professionalism, creative thinking and problem solving, team performance, and then business environments, the environments that that businesses can take place in, different environments, business operations, just daily operations within the business, hence the human resources function and quality of performance. So now that you know what you need to study, we now need to look at the structure of the paper. And just a sidebar, I'm using the business studies examination guidelines that were sent out by the Department of Basic Education. And here you find all the information regarding the scope of the papers. So we have just a classification of subtopics, and then they go in extreme depth and break them down here. So you will see macro environment, impact of recent legislation on business. Here, macro environment, impact of recent legislation on business. And then here on the right-hand side, you will see the learning outcomes. So this is what you should be able to do at the end of this module. And these outlines are really helpful to tell you exactly what you need to study and what you should be able to do. So, under the topic of impact of recent legislation on business, we have all these subtopics. So, this is really helpful to give you a very in-depth scope for the papers. In terms of the mark allocation, so like I said, it's a 150 mark paper. How the paper is split is it's split into a section A, B, and C. Section A is compulsory and it's short, very short type questions. Section B, you choose any two out of the three questions. Section C, section B is like medium answer questions, and section C is your essay question. You answer any one question in this section. They give two options, and it's one question that you have to answer. So, with a business paper, it's extremely important to note that you don't answer the whole question paper. Okay, so in section A, you answer everything. These are short answer questions like multiple choice, filling in the term, matching items. Section B, there's three questions. You answer only two. Okay. Section C, there's two questions, you answer one. Do not go and try answer all the questions. Because you only have 3 hours in a business studies paper, you won't be able to get through the whole paper if you answer all the questions. Similarly, what's going to happen is the marker is going to mark your whole section A because that's compulsory. In section B, they will mark the first two questions you've answered that are present, and they will scratch the third one out. The same for the essay question. So it's really important that you answer the correct questions. And you will find the information for this. I'll pull up a past paper so you can see how it will be given to you. In the first page, the instructions and information page, it's really important to read this. Don't skip over it. This question paper consists of 3 sections. It covers 2 main topics. So like we just saw, the business environments and business operations here. And then they say section A is compulsory. Section B consists of 3 questions. Answer any 2 of the 3. Section C consists of 2. Answer any 1 of the 2. Okay. So then the point that I made. Note that only the answers to the first 2 questions selected in section B and the answers to the first question selected in section C will be marked. Thus, you need to answer the correct amount of questions. You will see here in this table, they kind of explain it quite nicely. So 30 marks. Here we have, you need to answer 2 questions of 40 marks each. So you need to have 80 marks. Here they say spend around 70 minutes on this. And then your essay question, you answer just 1 for 40 marks. They say spend around half an hour on this. So that's in terms of just what you need to know generally and how the paper is going to be presented to you. Now we're going to look at how you go and answer the questions. Because what tends to happen that I see with my business studies students is they go over the content quite well, but when it comes to the paper, they don't present their answers in the format that is requested of them. And they don't use the action verbs as an indicator of what type of question or what type of answer they should give to each question. So here's an examination answer guide. These are featured in the self-study guides that were released by the department as well. You'll see here, Department of Basic Education. These will also be uploaded to a Google Drive afterwards for the students to take a look at. So again, it just breaks down the structure of the paper with the section A, B, and C with the total of 150 marks. Okay, so it says here that you should take special note of the following, the examination guidelines that we looked at. And then we're going to go through the tips on how to answer the different types of questions in business studies. So we'll do it per section. First, I'm going to chat about section A. Then we're going to chat about section B, which is where I want you guys to pay attention. And then section C particularly as well, because with your essay question, it's out of 40 marks. 32 marks are for facts, and the rest of the 8 marks are for structure. So those are like free marks if you get your structure correct. So it's very important that you know the structure for the business essay. And then we will also go over the action verbs, which I think is one of the most important things you can take away from this class, because I note that a lot of students don't apply these action verbs and the how the action verbs are marked in answering their questions. So in the section A, I'll use this one as an example. This is the last year's past paper, the NSC 2022 paper one. And I'm just going to use this as an example to illustrate what they mean here in the examination answer guide. So we'll look at what the examination answer guide says, and then we'll apply it to the past paper. So like I said, section A is generally made up of short answer questions or multiple choice questions. So you have multiple choice questions. So example like this. Then oftentimes they will give where you need to fill in the word, and then a match column one here as well. Okay. So those are the questions you tend to see pop up in the section A. You have the multiple choice, the matching, and then choosing the correct word. So how do we answer multiple choice questions? So we try to work out the answer without looking at the possibilities. You read through the statement and all the options. You underline the keywords in the statement, and you cross out the options that are wrong. So using the method or the method of elimination. You read through the statements again after using the method of elimination and select the most appropriate option from the options remaining. You then write down your answer and move to the next question. Do not guess your answers. Go back to the questions you were not sure of at the end of the paper if there is time left. We're going to look at that just now as well. So let's apply what they said here. So we have a question here that it says, this act creates a framework for acceptable employment practices and safety regulations in the workplace. The Basic Conditions of Employment Act, the Compensation for Occupational Injuries and Amendment Act, the Consumer Protection Act, BBBE, Broad-Based Black Economic Empowerment Act. So what they said we should do is we should try to work out the answer without looking at the possibilities, read through the statement, underline the keywords, cross out the options that are wrong. So the key word or thing in this question that is going to determine your answer is framework for acceptable employment practices and safety regulations in the workplace. So both of those. Then you go through these, especially when it's a question like this with the acts. We're going to use the method of elimination. So Broad-Based Black Economic Empowerment Act, we know that this has nothing to do with safety regulations in the workplace or acceptable employment practices. It's more about employment equity and affirmative action. So it's not number D. Consumer Protection Act, that's about consumers. It's not about employment practices or safety regulations. So it's also not the CPA. That leaves us with A and B, the BCA or COIDA. And this one is trying to catch you out because it says acceptable employment practices and safety regulations in the workplace. If it was just safety regulations, it would be the Compensation for Occupational Injuries and Diseases Amendment Act, which looks at having a safe workplace and compensating people for when they do have an injury or sustain an injury or illness in the workplace. It would be the Basic Conditions of Employment Act then, because out of these, it's the only one that speaks about acceptable employment practices and safety regulations. Thus, with the method of elimination, your answer is A. So what I want you guys to note here as well is look what it says here. Various options are provided as possible answers. Choose the answer and write only the letter next to the question numbers in the answer book. Okay. So our answer is A. If you go in your NSC end year paper and you write Basic Conditions of Employment Act as your answer, it's wrong. The question is asking you to write down this number. The correct answer is A. So just make sure that with these questions, you read the instructions, because almost all times here they'll also say, write only the word next to the question number. Here they say, write only the letter next to the question number. So just pay attention to that because they are quite particular in terms of how you need to present your answers. So this one's pretty simple. This is the easiest one. I hope that made sense with how I explained it there. What I would also recommend is leave a space open and just continue to the next question if you're struggling to answer this. The reason being, these are your short answer questions. They only count 2 marks each. It becomes more problematic when you leave questions out here in your section B, where your questions start counting 6 marks, 4 marks, 8 marks. So in terms of time, if you're struggling, leave it out, come back to it later. Also, if you, it says here, don't guess, but if you have 5 minutes left in the paper and you're still struggling with one of these, just guess rather than leave open. Because if you choose one of these, you have a 1 in 4 chance because there's 4 options. That means you have a 25% chance if you guess that one of your guesses is going to be right. Okay, so at the end of the paper, when you realize you have no more time, don't leave short answers like these open, guess them. Only towards the end if you really don't know. And then for the second part, which is your matching the columns questions. So for matching the columns questions, we read through the entire list of statements in column A and all the descriptions in column B. You read through each statement in column A and look for the best match in column B. Then you tick off the answers in column B so that you know which one has already been chosen and you don't accidentally give that one as an answer again. Okay, first do the ones you're sure of, then go back to the ones you're unsure of. So method of elimination. So an example, so it looks like this. I'll use this example here. So you choose a description that matches the term in column A. So Black economic empowerment. And then here you need to choose one. So oftentimes what they also note here, what tends to happen is that there are 2 matching ones sometimes. So here, Basic Conditions of Employment Act. Usually, if you note here, there's 5 and they give 10 options. So usually there's 2 like options that would best fit this one that they want you to pick from that is correct. So the Basic Conditions of Employment Act provides for a system of credits. No. Encourages consultation. Okay, so that's our one option. Our second option, let's see here, consumers can complain. No, that would be one of these. Workers are paid. No, that's piecemeal. Adding new products. No. Provides career guidance. No, that's the National Skills Development Strategy. Promotes fair labor practice. Adding new products. Consumers, workers are paid. So it's between these 2. These are the only ones that would really fit with this option here with the Basic Conditions of Employment Act. Because these are the only ones that speak about employment in the way that the Basic Conditions of Employment Act wants you to. Obviously, the answer is encourages consultation between employers and employees because fair labor practice would be more also the Labor Relations Act. But we have these 2 options, and then we know that it's A out of the 2 of these. It encourages consultation rather than this one. So now you know that G is not going to be chosen for the other one. So you can kind of tick that one off as well. So when you're doing this, just make sure that you don't pick one that could possibly be an answer to the second one, but it's quite a nice way to shorten them down even more. We'll do another example. So horizontal diversification. So there's going to be 2 options on diversification and one of them are going to be correct. This is the one, adding new unrelated products. And the other one is adding new related products. So these are the 2 options that pertain to diversification. Now they want you to know which one is horizontal. So it's H. So then E would not be selected here as one of the other answers. Okay. And then section B, which is what I really wanted to get to. I just want to check how we are for time. Yeah, we're all right. Okay, so in terms of section B, how the answers or the questions are generally presented is we have just general short ones or medium answer questions, and then they will give you a scenario and ask you questions on the scenario. So you will see they repeat this scenario, questions on scenario, scenario, questions on scenario. So how do we answer these case study or scenario questions? So we look at the heading to get an idea of what the case study is all about. Then we carefully read through the case study with understanding. We read each question and underline the keyword or verb. You read the case study again and underline each of the keywords in the case study, and then you answer the questions, paying special attention to the action verbs and the mark allocation. We'll look at that now. So let's apply this quickly. So we have a question here in terms of business operations, or let me just do one here on business environments. So we have a scenario and then answer the questions that follows. Excel Bank offers various financial products to prospective clients. The bank conducts an affordability assessment before credit is granted. EB ensures that their clients receive information in an understandable language and allow their clients to access and challenge their credit records. Quote, to consumer rights, discuss the impact of the National Credit Act. Okay, so usually how this works with the scenarios, the first one is an introductory statement. The facts start from here, usually one sentence, one fact. So to consumer rights, it's usually one right per sentence. So the bank conducts an affordability assessment. It ensures that their clients receive information in an understandable language and allow clients to access and challenge their credit records. Consumers are your clients as well. So what is your consumer, your client's rights? They conduct an affordability assessment, so it's not that one. So they ensure that their clients receive information in understandable language. They allow their clients to access and challenge their credit records. So we underline those key ones. Okay. And then note that it says quote here. I just want to point this out. If it says quote, you have to give the answer word for word. So you write this down word for word from the scenario. If you don't, and it says quote, you oftentimes won't get awarded the marks if you don't quote from the scenario. So now looking at the mark allocation and the action verbs, because oftentimes I think what happens is you will see 6 marks and then you're like, impact of National Credit Act. For 6 marks, you have to write 6 facts. No, that isn't how it is marked. So it's important to know the mark allocation so that you know how much you should write as your answer, that you don't write too much and waste time, but that you also don't write too little and don't get the marks for your answer. So these are the action verbs that you are commonly find in a business studies paper. So identify, motivate, explain, discuss, describe, outline, give, evaluate, analyze, elaborate, tabulate. And then it gives the meaning here of what if you see this word, what you should do. So here we have discuss the impact of the National Credit Act on business. Okay, discuss, state heading, and write explanation if it's discuss or describe. When we have something on impact wants you to talk about the positives and the negatives. So you need to talk about the pros and the cons of the National Credit Act on businesses. But note here how those are marked. So we have 3 different kinds of marking that happens in your business papers. We have split marking, then just 2 marks at the end of a statement, and then 1 mark at the end of a phrase. Okay, so I think the biggest one is the split marking. So to obtain full marks per fact in split marking, you are required to write a fact in a supporting statement. For example, workers may not work more than 45 hours. There's your 1 mark. In a week, there's your 2nd mark. So you need to give the full fact to get your full marks with split marking. And split marking is applied when you see these action verbs. So describe, explain, discuss, analyze, elaborate, evaluate. These, conversely, is just 2 marks at the end of your statement, and this one is 1 mark at the end of a phrase. So discuss the impact of the National Credit Act on businesses, 6 marks. Here, discuss is a split marking. So that means that you actually just need to give 3 full facts to get your 6 marks here. Okay, so do you see how your action verb and your mark allocation determines how much you write and what answer you give? Another example, explain overtime as one of the provisions of the Basic Conditions of Employment Act. Explain, split marking. Let me look for a, yes, so outline the advantages of diversification strategies. Outline here, 2 marks at the end of a statement. So in terms of this one, you need to give 3 advantages of a diversification strategy for 6 marks. You get 2 marks for each advantage. Okay, so name says 1 mark at the end of a phrase, name here. So hence, you just write the 2 types and then you get 1 mark for each. So I'll show you how the split marking is applied using this question as an example in the past paper. So you will see in the memo, and I think oftentimes students underestimate the importance of going through past papers, doing the past paper, but then also going through the memo so that you can see how you're supposed to give your answers and where you went wrong. So it is really important that you sit with not only the question paper, but also the memo when you're studying. So we're looking at question 2.5.2. So here, so like I said, an impact question wants you to talk about the positives and the negatives, or the positives or the negatives. Okay, so you will see here max 6. Okay, these are all the possible answers. Let's look at how the split marking is applied. So the positives of the National Credit Act is that it lowers bad debts. There you have 1 mark, resulting in better cash flow. There's your 2 mark. So oftentimes the fact will be presented like this in your textbook, and then students will study it and they will just study that it lowers bad debts. Then you just write lowers bad debts, or oftentimes students just write in phrases because they're scared of time. So you just try write as quickly and short as possible. This becomes a problem with the split marking because if you leave out half of the fact, even if it's not necessarily that significant, you will lose your mark. Okay, because then, say for example, you give 3 facts then, but you only give them half. That means you get 3 out of 6, even though you gave 3 facts. So it's really important that you give the whole fact. So protects the National Credit Act, protects businesses, 1 mark, against non-paying consumers. There's your 2 mark. Okay, so important to note how split marking is applied. So here you will see that it says evaluate or analyze requires the advantages and positives or disadvantages and negatives. Okay, so it's important to just note and see what the question is asking of you. So if we have an explain question for 4 marks, explain, state heading, and write explanation, motivate or support from your answer means quote as is from the scenario. Otherwise, you won't be awarded marks. The same with here with the name any 2 types of defensive strategies. Here, identify, name, those are the same. Naming the fact from the scenario or statement, or just naming your fact. Okay, so pay attention to this. And what I would recommend you do is that you sit with your, like with a past paper, and then go and look at each of the action verbs. You will see here, all the questions usually start with action verbs. And then go and sit with this next to you and then see, okay, what marking is applied with this action verb? What does this action verb actually want me to do? So that you can figure out that when you have questions like this, where it's outlined the advantages of diversification strategies for 6 marks, it doesn't mean you need to give 6 diversification strategies. It means you need to give 3 for 2 marks each in terms of split marking. So use that to guide how you answer your questions in your section P. So now we're going to look at the section C. And in the section C, you are required to write a business essay. The business essay counts 40 marks, which means that if you leave out section C, you will get 110 out of 150 if you got all of this correct. That means you get put particularly in jeopardy when you don't answer this and you also haven't gotten every single question here correct, because you need to get 75 out of 150 to pass the paper. So the business essay is kind of an area where you can also score good, like easy marks. We're going to look at the structure of it now, and then I just want to point out something that's only really applicable to the paper one, but kind of like a study cheat hack. So in terms of a essay question, they chat about it here. I'll briefly go through it here, but I have a separate document that I have created here on how to write a business essay that we will go through just now with an example. So in a business essay, you have to answer according to a question they give you. In terms of the business essay questions, so do you guys remember that we were chatting about how the papers split up into the business environments and the business operations? So here, business environments, business operations. So you will note that how the questions are structured is that the objective type questions in section A cover both business environments and business operations. The questions here in section B, it will be one question on business environments, one question on business operations, and the other one will be a miscellaneous topic, which means it deals with both business environments and both business operations. Similarly, for the paper 2, we will just substitute the topics with the topics present for the paper 2. So that would be your business roles and business ventures. So section A covers business roles and ventures. Section B, there's one question on business roles, one question on business ventures. The third question is a mix of the two. And then section C, your essay, there's one essay option on the topic business environments and one essay option on the topic business operations. For the paper 2, one topic on business ventures, one topic on business roles. So now you already know that for your paper 1, the question one option is going to be business operations and the other option is going to be your business environment, sorry. However, the topic under which what they ask under these main topics may differ. So in the 2022 paper, there was legislation, the Labor Relations Act. In the previous paper, they would have done legislation maybe as well, but a different act. Business operations, quality of performance. If you check the other options for here, they could also just ask on the human resources function. So the questions change. So you can kind of figure out for yourself which one you are most comfortable with, business environments or business operations, and then kind of figure out how you need to answer your essay question. So in terms of the structure, we're going to go through that now, but it is created out of an introduction, a body, and a conclusion. You write in paragraphs with spaces in between the paragraphs. A paragraph is also more than one sentence. If it's just one sentence, it's just a sentence. It's not a paragraph. A paragraph is made up of multiple sentences. So we have an introduction, a body, and a conclusion. It's important to note that for a business essay, different to a history essay, we use headings. So we write for the introduction, we start with the word introduction as a heading. Then underneath that introduction heading, you write an opening statement that links to the instructions of the essay question. You give at least 2 meaningful facts to obtain a maximum of 2 marks. Do not repeat or use words that are in the question paper, either in the introduction or conclusion. So that's your introduction. You write introduction, and then we would write 2 general facts about the Labor Relations Act to get full marks for our introduction. Then our body, you do not write body as your heading. Your headings are made up of the questions here. So we'll take a look at that now. I'm just going to go over this and then I will switch to the other document that has applied examples. So you break up the information into logical parts, making use of headings and subheadings. The maximum amount of marks obtained for the body is 32 marks. So when we see this, don't get scared and be like, I need to write 32 facts. How generally you are marked in a business essay is it's 2 marks for one full fact. So that's 16 facts in your body. Do not repeat facts, get to the point. Your responses must be bulleted and in full sentences, and put your statements in context. So you can either write as just in paragraphs, or you can write bullet pointed, which is sometimes a bit easier because then you don't have to add linking words in between your sentences to make your paragraphs flow. So, just important when you write in bullet points, it must still be in full sentences. Okay. Students tend to lose a lot of marks in the essay because they don't write in full sentences. And then, particularly with the split marking, it catches them and they lose a lot of marks. So, for a conclusion, you then write conclusion as a heading. You briefly summarize the main point and focus of the essay, and you end your essay with one meaningful fact, not repeating what was said in the introduction or body. Give at least one meaningful closing statement for 2 marks. And then we're going to get to the insight or lasso now. So this is the 8 marks that you are given for like your style. So for it says it's usually written as lasso because L for layout, A for analysis, S for synthesis, O for originality. So to get the layout mark, you need to write the word introduction and conclusion with supported facts under each to obtain full marks for layout. Write the subheadings that appear in the question paper to obtain 1 mark for analysis. Ensure that you write as many correct facts as you can that amount to at least 16 facts or more in the body to obtain another 1 mark for analysis. Write responses only relevant to the questions asked to obtain your 2 marks for synthesis. And use 2 current examples to elaborate on facts to obtain your 2 marks for originality. So 1 mark per example. So let's just cover this slightly more in depth here. So how do we write a business essay? A business essay is not like an English or a history essay in that you have to say certain facts to get the marks. It's not a narrative essay, okay? So please write legibly and use grammar rules still. It has a specific structure you follow, and there are certain facts you have to say to get the marks. You can write in bullet point, but it has to be in full sentences. Like I said, bullet point is sometimes easier. So this is how the marks are broken down. Introduction, you get 32 marks in total for your introduction, body, and conclusion. So 1 complete sentence, 1 fact equals 2 marks in your body. So that means that your actual essay is out of 32 marks and your structure and layout is out of 8 marks to give 40 marks. And then I said, make sure you include 2 examples because students always forget this, and this is 3 marks for this originality. Did you use your own relevant examples that are linked to the context? Synthesis, does your essay flow in the order of questioning? Analysis, did you give enough facts? Layout, did you use the correct format? So in terms of the body and so we have now that we said that we're going to have the heading introduction and then we're not going to have the heading body. So what goes there instead of the heading body? You use these for your subheadings in your body. So your first heading is going to be the rights of employees in terms of the Labor Relations Act. The second one in your body, the purpose of the Labor Relations Act. The third one, the impact of the Labor Relations Act on business. And the last one, penalties businesses may face for non-compliance with this act. Okay, so all you do to find your subheadings is you just take away the action verbs in these to turn them into statements. Also note that the action verbs in your essay apply in the same way they did in the section B. So if they say outline the rights of employees in terms of the Labor Relations Act, excuse me, that still means that you need to, split marking is going to be applied in this. So go and look at what that means then that you need to do in the examination answer guide. So we have an outline question. Outline, briefly explain in full sentences. Outline, I believe, it's 2 marks at the end of a statement. This explain the purpose of the Labor Relations Act. So explain, we have here, it is a split marking. So you need to make sure that you give your facts fully. So look at that as well when you're going through it. So now let's try apply what we just learned to the essay question. We'll use the examples that I've added here to how you will find your headings. Because what we're looking at now is more just the layout and the structure, because all you put in here is the content. And we're going to go over the content for the paper 1 next week or in our next class, and for the paper 2 in our last class. So we have an example question here, business environments. So Jama and Mapule are young entrepreneurs, started their retail company some years back. They are aware that their business operates in 3 environments, and they are afraid of the challenges from the macro environment that will impact their business positively, but also negatively. So in terms of the scenario in your essay questions, it's usually just there to provide some context. It's not that important. It is, however, usually helpful for you to make your examples with, because then you kind of have some context to make them with. So with reference to the above statement, provide the following. So outline the purpose of the National Credit Act, discuss in detail the following components: economic, technological, legal, and political, describe the institutional environment, advise businesses on the interrelationship with the macro environment. So in terms of structure, it said here that we write out our introduction. We write out the word introduction. So you write introduction and you put a general, 2 meaningful general facts underneath to get 2 out of 2 for your introduction. Then look at the headings that were made here. So purpose of NCA, the purpose of NCA. The following, the components of the macro environment, components of the macro environment, and then I put them in subheadings here. Economic, technological, legal, and political, the same thing. And then conclusion, you write conclusion and you put 1 meaningful fact at the end for your conclusion. So you should be able to see where your headings come from here. The example here as well, pay attention to the headings and tabulation. So note that they give you a scenario. Like I said, scenario isn't too important. Write a detailed essay on the following aspects. Tabulate the difference between quality control and quality assurance. So that's the first question here. So we have introduction. We write 2 general facts for our introduction. Then we go the difference between quality control and quality assurance. And they said tabulate, which means put your answer in a table. So we make a table, quality control versus quality assurance. So same thing here with the headings and then your conclusion. So now I want to show you guys how the information is presented, or how it should be presented in the paper, just to wrap up in terms of the essay questions. So how the essay questions are marked is, what I want you guys to note is, I'll use this one as an example. So we'll use question 5, business environments legislation. So how it is marked is that if you answered every single one of these headings to the fullest of its capacity, you would score more than 32 marks. Remember, we said facts is 32. So oftentimes students see this list and they're like, oh my gosh, I have to write so much. But look at how the marking is given here when the breakdown of the mark allocation. So here, all of this is a max of 32. But look, if we tally these up, so introduction, like I said, 2 marks, and then these are your points here that you need to discuss. So differences between quality control and quality assurance, you can get, differences between quality control and quality assurance, you can get a maximum of 8 marks for that section. So 4 facts, basically. A maximum of 12 marks for the benefits of a good quality management system, 14 marks for TQM, 12 marks for quality circles, 2 marks for conclusion. However, it's not that you have to fulfill all of these maximums, because if you tally these up, you will note that they come up to far more than 32, right? 12, 14, 28, 30, 40, 50. So you don't need to answer everything that you possibly can for these. I just wanted to point that out because sometimes students tend to get a bit overwhelmed by the fact that they see there's so many marks I have to say. Yeah, so oftentimes what you will also see maybe happens in your paper is, for example, in the differences between quality control and quality assurance that's featured here. Look, it's got a submax here of 4 for each section. So 2 facts, 2 facts. If you wrote 3 facts for each year, so you wrote 6 facts in total, you would still get a maximum of 8. I wouldn't mark these other ones because that is just the sub max for that section you can get. So you will see here, so we have a question on quality of performance. And they're just asking you about businesses implement quality control and quality assurance. They also enjoy the benefits of a high quality management system. Continuous skills development and total client satisfaction contribute towards the effective implementation of TQM. Other businesses prefer to use the services of quality circles to achieve the desired outcome. So now you need to give a general fact about any of these things. So you will see that featured here. Quality control plays an important role in the entire production process as it determines the results of the end product. In your introduction, you get 1 mark for one full fact. So we give 2. So they gave 1 on quality control. Quality circles offer good recommendations as they consist of specialists from different departments. There's your 2 marks for your introduction. Then for your quality control, you get 2 marks at the end of each statement. It says the answer does not have to be in tabular form because they didn't request it here. They just say outline the differences. Award a maximum of 4 marks if the differences are not clear. And then the benefits of a good quality management system. So effective customer services are rendered, 1 mark, resulting in increased customer satisfaction, 2 marks. Time and resources, 1 mark, are used efficiently, 2nd mark. So do you see here how if you don't give the full fact, you will lose a lot of marks? So you actually only have to give you don't even have to fulfill this maximum of 6. So let's say to be comfortable for all of these, give 6 facts under each heading and you will score more than enough marks. So use these examples and how it looks here in the memo and go over here. So we have a quality of performance. Then go over this question, go look at other questions that popped up in a past paper, and then go and write the information like this so that you're practicing providing the information in the way that they want you to provide it. The last thing I want to note before I close off is particularly relevant just to the paper 1. And that is because if you see here, our business operations, we only have 2 topics under here. So now you know that for your essay, it's going to be either on the human resources function or quality of performance or just a mixture of the two. Usually they separate them. However, in terms of business environments, it could be on recent legislation where there's like 8 different types of legislation underneath, the different business strategies, the different environments. So it's almost easier to prepare for this because the quality of performance module is quite short. So what you can do, kind of strategically learn, is to make sure that you know these 2 modules extremely well because you know the essay question is going to come out of the one of these for the business operations topic. There are also then so many examples of the type of questions they can ask. So here we have a quality of performance example. So go look at maybe 1 or 2 quality of performance examples and 1 or 2 human resources function examples so that you know what to study and how to study it. So that was just a quick tip. We'll look more into that in our next class when we particularly cover the paper 1 content. Cool. That was it for me for today.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much for a very informative session today. And we look forward to tomorrow's session on history. So do also note that this is a live program for now. However, it will remain on the YouTube and Facebook platform, so you can always refer back. And please like and share this lesson and pass it on to students who can benefit from the lesson today. From myself, Kamita Kamar, and my guest, Daniel Victorious, for now we say we bid you farewell, a good day, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you.